Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Terri Jacke. Terri serves as the president of Inspired Training Institute, an executive consulting firm she founded nearly 20 years ago, and she is the author of Is This a Lousy Job or Is It Me? A real-life guide for achieving success at work. Terri offers practical ideas for managing novel workplace situations, and we've all had those, depending on one's stage of character development. Now, Terri invites her readers to see and learn from real-life experiences that he or she is not alone in their struggles or doubts. Terri Jacke, welcome to the Success Insight podcast.
Thank you for having me, Howard. I'm glad to be here.
Terri, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know you are a neighbor from my former hometown. So I was not hometown, second hometown, I guess. I was from Chicago. You are up in, we like to think it's the northern suburbs, but I know it's a little more definitive than that. But northern Wisconsin, Green Bay area.
Yes.
Fantastic. And I had to say, as I was introduced to you by your public relations firm and I started to read the book, I almost felt like, oh my God, she's telling my stories here. I mean, I've been in that scenario. Many of us have had lousy jobs. We're in careers and we wonder, why am I doing this? Is this all there is? Sometimes we settle, sometimes we move on. And I think it's, given that we are in COVID-19 pandemic still, there's opportunities to have reflective conversations about what do I really want to do. So I think it's perfect timing that you're on Success Insight. And so what I'd love if you could share a little bit about your background and let's kind of dive more into your work and into what was that spark, that insight that you said, I think I need to write a book.
Well, the spark for writing the book actually started 14 years ago. So the book was suddenly done after 14 years. What brought me to the need to write it was the fact that I was in organizational development. So part of my work was, of course, as you know, was studying human behavior, watching what was going on around me. So I was very observant in terms of the people around me and the workplace dynamics I was experiencing. And I was watching some people seem to move through workplace dynamics effortlessly, with grace, no fear, no drama, while other people shrank or rebelled or got stuck or would get all wound up about the things that they were dealing with. And I found that absolutely fascinating. And I would say I found that fascinating from a very young age. So as you've read in the book, I started working when I was 12 years old. And from that very young age, working with some very interesting characters, I was fascinated. I think that led me to the organizational development work that I started doing when I was in my early to mid 20s. And now at 50 years old, I've been doing for, oh my goodness, I guess we're going to say almost 30 years. That's a lot of years.
We can keep age specifics out of it if you'd like, but I get it. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's fine. It's been quite a while. But then as I was starting to research this, I was trying to figure out what I was seeing. So I was trying to get my head around the differences I was seeing in people. And I studied Myers-Briggs. So was temperament what was causing this? I studied emotional intelligence. Maybe that's why people respond differently and react differently to these things. Gender, birth order, spiritual intelligence. I went down the whole gamut trying to understand what I was seeing and finding an answer to the differences in people and their responses to the different workplace dynamics. And it was years into my research, and all qualitative research, of course, but that I realized character was the defining answer. All of those other things I had studied may have influenced people in situations, but the enduring difference was where people were in terms of their character development. And I was from there, I was able to recognize that people were at different stages of development, which was driving their behaviors, decisions, and actions in the workplace. And then it became the work of figuring out the stages.
Okay. And so I am curious, and for our audience, I'm sure they'll ask this question, what is character? How do you define it? How are others defining it?
I define character as one's mental and moral qualities. And by mental qualities, I mean things like the ability to reason, make decisions, focus, anticipate, choose your responses, demonstrate confidence, be resilient, create, adapt. In terms of moral qualities, I'm talking about integrity, honesty, fairness, courage, respect for self, respect for others, fortitude, and loyalty. So the two categories combined make up one's character. Okay.
And in your learnings, your education, your practice, do you in any way see, is character something, like with Myers-Briggs, there's the temperament, we're kind of hardwired. And then we learn through experience, nature, nurture, on and on. Is character, is that hardwired? Is it something we learn because we've got great role models? How is it manifested?
In my experience, and I want to hit the MBTI question because I'm a master practitioner with MBTI. I love the instrument. I think it's so valuable in our coaching crafts. What I have observed is character serves as the foundation, if you will. And depending on the stage of character development you're in, that is what comes through your MBTI hardwiring. So your different stage of character development looks different, even though you're always, for example, an ENFP in Myers-Briggs. You will reason differently based on the development of your character. You will display courage differently, even though you're still an ENFP. So your character comes through your hardwiring. Does that make sense to you, Howard?
No, that makes sense. And as an INTJ, by the way, since in the spirit of full disclosure, and you're probably asking, how is an INTJ coaching and working a podcast? But hey, I'm a highly adaptable INTJ. How am I developing that character, though? Is it how I was raised? Is the family unit, the religious, just the friends, the neighbors? How is that being developed, though?
I think that's being developed by the experiences you have. So I do believe, especially the moral qualities, I do think that nurture definitely plays a part in that, in terms of the environment that we're raised in, the people we're interacting with, the role models we have in our formative years while we're growing up. And then in the book, what I'm talking about is the ability to use work as a platform to develop your character. So in the workplace, we develop our character by going through different struggles, trials, and tribulations, bumping up against people who are at all different stages of character development, who view the world differently than us, who make decisions differently than us, who have different levels of resilience, different levels of respect for themselves and others. And as we bounce against and bounce off of those people in the workplace, we start to refine our character. We have choices to make about how we're going to respond to different things. And if we choose to use work as a platform to develop our character, we take each of those experiences as a learning opportunity to become a better version of ourselves in each of those mental and moral qualities that we talked about a moment ago.
Okay. I'm curious then, in your work, and especially in the book, who are your ideal readers for the book, or, for that matter, even your clients? And I ask this because I'll ask this often in some of my interviews, is some of the opportunities we have to develop a better society is to start earlier with certain kinds of conversations. And I'm thinking, just kind of based on the stories in your book, and for our listeners, as you read through Terri's book, Is This a Lousy Job or Is It Me? She's essentially gone through her entire work life, from working in the weekend camp, which, by the way, Terri, I'm incredibly envious. I never got to do that. I would think starting to have conversations about character ought to happen real early in our life. What you describe is something very intuitive. You're starting to gather this information, this evidence, being able to discern the differences between people. And that's just incredibly valuable. So how do we take this concept of character and take it as far upstream as we can to help individuals who are growing up and are also very different from each other?
Right. That's an excellent question, Howard. For me, I actually, as I was writing this book, I think I was writing this book for a 25 or 30-year-old Terri. I was trying to go back through my own life. And that's why the stories chronicle my experience in the workplace from age 12 till now, is because I wanted it to be one character so the readers could see a person moving through the stages instead of a series of disjointed stories about different people. And then rather than making up a fictional character, I do have tons of journals and notes about different experiences that I went through in the workplace. So I was able to pull from, plus I have a memory of an elephant. So I was able to pull from a lot of my experiences to just have the one character move through so the reader could see the stages and the growth and the changes. But I think the goal would be for this book or this kind of awareness to wind up in the hands of somebody probably in their mid-20s, maybe as early as high school. But my guess would be you would need a little time in the workplace to understand some of the dynamics well enough to be able to grab on to these stages and understand what learnings are available and how you might implement growth on your own. So I would love to see this in young professionals' hands. I would love, my coaching team at Inspired Training Institute, we use this book. We have different worksheets and workshops that we can do with groups of people. But when we're working one-on-one, doing our executive or leadership coaching or even career coaching, we use the book and we help them map out where they've been, what they've learned, and where they are. And from where they are, how can you move forward? Because I think that simple awareness helps you accelerate your development. Just being aware that there is another step. And I should also add, the fear stage is a stage. More people get stuck in that stage than any other stage, as you can imagine. And I really think that somebody who's struggling and trying to figure out, this job is lousy, I've been at another lousy job, jobs are lousy in general, they may be stuck in the fear stage. So to them, I want to say, please read about the 7 stages so you know that the stage after this one, if you could figure out, which hopefully the book will help you, how to move forward out of that stage, the next stage is authenticity. And there you will find greater fulfillment than you find in the fear stage. But that's up to you. You can do that. You can begin to move yourself to the next stages when you understand that there are stages.
This is actually a great segue, if you wouldn't mind. Can you, in your model, and it's called the FABLE model, first, how did that moniker can't come up? But also, if you could, walk us through the highlights of the 7-stage model that you're working with.
Sure. So the FABLE is actually BY FABLE. So the first letter of each of the 7 stages.
Oh my God, I just realized what it is.
Yeah.
BY FABLE.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's it. Okay, we're done.
Yeah. So the first letter of each stage. So it's a way to remember the stages. So the first stage is the beginning stage. And this is at whatever age you enter the world of work. And I would say this is paid work. Whenever you enter that, and people enter it at all different ages, as we've discussed it. For me, it was age 12. And that's where you're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. You're looking around and you're trying to understand how to fit into this weird world of work. And basically all you're trying to do is figure out how to do what it is you're supposed to do in the workplace. So there's a moral to each stage in the BY FABLE model. And the moral of that stage is to be teachable. And once you're able to learn to be teachable, you inculcate that moral, if you will, then you're ready to move on to the next stage. The next stage is the yuckiness stage. And the yuckiness stage is a stage where we realize that people can be jerks.
Oh yeah.
So this is when we're shocked. Oh, and everyone has these. I've heard the most wonderful stories since I started using this book to coach people. One gentleman was just telling me that he was working on a construction job site. And I was thinking as he was telling his story, because I knew where he worked and I knew how wonderful the place was, I was thinking, wow, I wonder if he'll be the first person who didn't have a yuckiness stage. And moments later, he said, I was on a crew and they were horrible to me. They treated me terribly. They were just older gentlemen and they were just nasty and they treated me like I was worthless. And I was thinking, okay, that was where he discovered that people could be jerks. Another, and you'll love this, Howard, a woman that I've known now for almost 10 years. And I've coached her on and off as she's progressed rapidly through an organization. I remember vividly a coaching session with her after I'd been coaching her a couple of years. She went to this company right out of college and she came into the room that we were working in. And she said, Terri, did you know so-and-so was trying to manipulate so-and-so to do this? All these political things are going on. And she was so heartbroken. She's like, when did we become this company with all of this political stuff and people doing the shenanigans behind people's backs? And I said, well, this has always been going on. You just realized it's always been going on. So that was her entry into the yuckiness stage. So the moral of the yuckiness stage is to pay attention, to be observant and to pay attention to. You don't have to do anything about it. You just need to learn that some of these dynamics exist in the workplace.
With that particular stage, and there is a couple individuals, one in particular, and it even happens when you're in your 30s and 40s, is that you just want to stay as far away and separate yourself from these people as much as you can.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And the problem is, though, when we just try and separate, we aren't always learning the lesson. So there's an element of being willing to stay present, to watch what's going on around you, and to learn simply to be observant. I'm going to be present. I'm not going to fully engage. I'm going to watch, but I'm going to stay here. I'm not going to walk away. I'm not going to shield myself, because that actually leads you to the third stage, which is the fear stage. So the fear stage is when we realize that we want to protect ourselves. So we tend to use two shields that I call disingenuousness and compliance. So this is where we kind of go along to get along. Mm-hmm. We say what we think other people want to hear. We're compliant just so that we don't provoke any yuckiness behavior, because that was so shocking and miserable, and stunning to witness over and over again in the yuckiness stage. So in the fear stage, we put on some protections. And in that stage, the moral is really to learn to be cautious about how we interact with people and to be thoughtful about the impact of our behaviors, decisions, and actions in the workplace. So that's where we're learning kind of how do we get along with other people. And we're kind of behind our shield. So we're kind of faking it to make it. We're going along to get along a little bit, but we're learning what we're able to get away with in the workplace in terms of not creating more drama. The problem with the fear stage is it can escalate into what I call functional fear-based behaviors, and then it can escalate even further into what I call fruitless fear-based behaviors, where you become very political, very manipulative, and some of the ugliest behaviors that we've seen in the workplace usually have happened with somebody who's stuck in the fear stage.
And after fear, you've got authenticity.
Yes. Authenticity is where you finally realize, oh my goodness, the weight of carrying these shields, this self-preservation and self-protection is exhausting. I've just got to be me. I've just got to enjoy what I do. And this is where we learn to drop the shields and let our guard down and fully engage. And it's usually a pretty exciting time. The moral of this stage is be real. And this is where we feel we've engaged for the first time, and we're feeling confident about our ability to draw from the fear stage to protect ourselves if we need to. But otherwise, we're much more engaged. We're much more collaborative. We're doing a lot more reflecting on what brings us joy, what brings us fulfillment, making decisions that truly honor who we are in terms of, am I working in the right place? Do these values align with mine? And we see this is where one of the mental qualities of confidence really rushes forward, and we're able to explore who we really are in a new way with greater confidence for the first time.
And so then we've got boundaries, understanding our role in the workplace. And, the question that I have got to ask and, go through the rest of the stages, but this is a really, you talked about the ideal age for this work. I could see this as a good primer for you're just starting a new job. And there's a couple books out there, your first 90 days. Mm-hmm. And it would seem to me that you can use this model, this BY FABLE model, I got it right, to help someone perhaps new in their career begin to become aware of these stages and begin to use them effectively, as opposed to events happen and not quite knowing what to expect. So basically, to be forearmed is to be forewarned, so to speak.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think if you have a sense that you will be moving through all of these stages over the course of your career. You understand what you're trying to move towards. It doesn't seem so alarming. It doesn't seem so confusing. There is a pattern, and you can move yourself through this pattern more intentionally. My goal was to really help people feel empowered to move themselves forward in a way that, without understanding that you move through these stages over the course of your career, you might not be able to do it. And also within that, Howard, the fact that fear is a legitimate stage. It actually is a stage that serves us. It teaches us stuff. It's not a stage to be avoided. It's a stage to move through and learn from. Just be aware that you're in it.
If we are in these stages, so as I look at the 7 stages, so for our listeners, we just briefly mentioned boundaries, then we have love, and then finally exit. And I'm curious on exit. Is the exit my quote unquote, and if we had the video on, you'd see me making my air quotes. Is this the exit out of my work life? Or can it also be exit out of the job? Where is that?
It would be exit out of your work life. So think of this BY FABLE model as kind of a meta model. So this is over your entire career from the moment you step into the world of work until you step out. So exit is actually when you're no longer in the work world. You're no longer getting paid to work. So I do talk in the love stage that many people extend their love stage. If they achieve the love stage over the course of their career, they're so fulfilled by the work they're doing. They love being of service to others. That's what that stage is all about, that they may extend the love stage by doing paid board positions or other part-time jobs or consulting or something of the sort, any number of things. But exit is actually when you stop getting paid to work and you basically are taking your very well-developed character out into the world in a different way. And the moral of the exit stage is to be grateful for all you've learned and to be peaceful that you've given all you could in the world of work and you've learned so much about yourself on the journey. And now you really get to enjoy all of that growth and, hopefully mentor others in some way, whether it's grandchildren or family members or, volunteering somewhere, whatever that may be.
I can appreciate that, definitely. And certainly the be of service, within our respective professions, we're both coaches and, there's not only running the business, but there's also beginning to find ways to continue be of service so that you can look back. Absolutely. And, as Maslow, I guess that would be his self-actualization.
Yes.
I think there's still 5, but maybe there's a 6th one now. I don't know.
I think there's still 5.
All right. So I'm curious now with the book. It's come out just recently in September. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
It's 14 years in the making. What was it like to write the book? How did you sit down? And you mentioned earlier on you have a home by the lake, which is not a bad place to be right now during our pandemic. How did you finally set out to, let's put the words on paper and organize it? How'd you do that? I
started doing it probably, I want to say 6 years ago. And what's interesting about it is at that time, 6 years ago, I only had 3 stages. I essentially had authenticity, boundaries, and love, but I called them authenticity, boundaries, and consideration. So I called them the ABCs. And my adult daughter, who you can read about in the book, but she insisted that that wasn't the whole model. And she said that it cut short all of the wisdom I had shared with her and her friends as they were entering the world of work. And I couldn't just take that, tiny piece and call it complete. So she, which, being an executive coach and then coaching your daughter, it's, I guess, turnabout fair play because she used all my skills on me and pushed me to expand the model appropriately and accurately. And then I started trying to figure out how I was going to make this make sense and make this accessible to people of any age. I knew storytelling would be important. So that's when my work-life memoirs became the vehicle. And in terms of when I wrote it, I'm blessed with a very busy practice, very busy firm. So it was written on evenings and weekends and all hours of the night out at the lake, sometimes here at the house in town, sometimes on the road in hotel rooms while I was traveling. So it took a lot of time. I often fantasized that I was going to take just a month off to write it. And that never actually materialized with my busy schedule. But so it was written in pieces over a very long period of time. It became clear that I was ready to do something with it, that it kind of surfaces, it clarifies itself for you and tells you it's ready at some point.
Fantastic. And how do you envision this book being used and to further inform the work you're doing in your practice?
My favorite way to use the book is to have a coaching client read one chapter at a time. And then we really digest that chapter. We talk about the mental moral qualities that they developed and when they actually inculcated the moral of each stage. And I love mapping out a timeline of their career with them to learn where they are now. And from where they are now, we actually do a development plan to help them get to the next stage. That's my favorite. I just love hearing other people's stories. I love how excited they get because they automatically are like, I'm writing a book, I'm telling my story, which I encourage all of them to do. But my other favorite thing is usually speaking to groups. Interestingly, Howard, women's groups love digesting this topic. Just absolutely love speaking about this together. And that's been super fun, although I've spoken to all sorts of groups about it. But that's been really interesting because I think they can relate to the character. So they're going, aha.
Right. Been there, done that,
Absolutely. So it's been very, very fun, very rewarding as well. But we also do have workshops on our website that we offer that are based on the stages of the book and take participants through the stages differently. And of course, you don't know which stage the participants are in, so you have to teach as though anyone might be in any stage. But that's fun because you see the participants really learning from each other. I think the most important thing to me is that you don't rush through it. So take time to read the book, let memories come back, your own memories, let connections be made, let realizations occur so that you're actually thinking through your own growth over the course of your career.
I think that is so important. As I was reading the book, I was being reminded, what was the first type of job I had? It was probably cutting lawns. And then, I worked in a little diner around the block from me, which was probably the one of the greatest opportunities. That's how I developed my love for cooking. But just the breadcrumbs. I mean, it's really amazing. Even the fact that you and I are having a conversation today for the podcast is we would not be doing this today if certain events had not happened as I'm going through, these stages.
Absolutely.
And it was just, in some ways, it was kind of going down memory lane, some good memories, some not so good memories. But I just think it's fascinating because, if we can learn to observe and, kids, I suppose, I mean, I'm not a father, so I can't speak directly to it. So you're a parent, you could. But kids tend to think they know everything. And I guess perhaps they think they know everything early. It's getting earlier and earlier, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But, this one gift to them is being there, coaching them, mentoring them to be observant.
Absolutely.
And just to ask, what are you seeing? How are you feeling? What do you think?
Yeah.
And it just is a wonderful, wonderful model. And now that you have the book and you have the workshops and obviously a very vibrant coaching practice, what are you hearing about this work, this particular book and the work that's arising as a result of it?
I'm hearing a lot of ahas, so a lot of personal insights. Frankly, people have been very grateful for the reflection and taking time out to think about where they are in this larger pattern of the course of their career. So it gets people to kind of lift their head up, look around them and reset, and figure out where they are and where they want to be and be much more intentional and empowered in the way they move through their career. And who they are within their career, how they pursue fulfillment, what success looks like for them, and how they're going to go about that. The other thing I'm hearing a lot is can I have this just for leaders? Like, how does this look in leadership? So I am working on a book on the 7 stages using the BY FABLE model for leaders. So I will create that for the people who are asking for it, because they're trying to figure out, does it look different? Do these stages, how do they look when I feel like I need to also be modeling leadership in a certain way? And I can bring that together for them in my next book, in my spare time, Howard.
Of course. What I really love about this book, and just, the model and the stories, whether you're on the career or you're in a dissatisfying job, or, there's so much uncertainty today. Now's the time to take advantage and think about, what do I really want to do? What am I passionate about? What contribution do I want to make to ensure that I'm happy? Just the career conflict and burnout. I love some of the topics you talked about, the workplace bullying and hostile environments, and just so many places where a model like this, and I really do love the idea of this character and the idea of mental and moral qualities, and it's just this wonderful way to help individuals who perhaps maybe they don't realize they're struggling.
Right, absolutely. And the thing is, with character, if you work on your character, everything else falls into place, because once you work on your character, you will make better decisions. You will do better informed choices about your behavior and actions, and more honest with yourself about what you want to be doing and what honors you, which leads to fulfillment. The more fulfilled you are by your work, the greater chance you have of achieving success, because you're doing things that are in alignment with who you really are in your character. So it starts with character development, moves to fulfillment, and achieves success. That's the pattern. That's the model.
Very good. Very good. So I am curious, now that you have this book published, what does your daughter have to say now?
She's very proud. She gets emotional because she's pretty excited for me. She tells all of her friends they must read the book. So I think she's trying to be a little salesperson for me, which is adorable.
Of course. Yeah,
and
probably.
She's the perfect age. So she's 25. And if I could get this into all 25-year-olds' hands, that would be fantastic. It would certainly give them a heads up to some of the things that you and I kind of muddled through. Didn't understand what was happening. And I would love for them to, because they are, you made the point earlier that they're learning younger and younger and thinking they know it all younger and younger, and they are. And when you talk to them, what's so funny, I talked to a 27-year-old recently who said, I think I'm in the boundary stage. And I was like, oh, nope, probably not. You're probably in the yuckiness stage and heading into fear and learning how to protect yourself, but you're thinking you're setting boundaries, because they're young, and that's what they think. And so we all generally, when we read this, we think that we're further along than we are. That it's just human nature, especially the younger you are and the less experience you have with some of the dynamics, you think you're much further along. So,
yeah. Are you familiar with Robert Keegan's Stages of Adult Development?
No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, he wrote a book, Keegan and Leahy, Immunity to Change. So that's your limiting beliefs and, how things, we want to do something, but we find a way to sabotage it. But in his work prior to it, he talked about areas of development, and there's like a 5-stage. And I always thought, I'm stage 5, but I think in reality, probably more 3.5, maybe 4 if I'm lucky. But we always believe we're more. But that's why we have coaches and mentors and guides and Sherpas to help us along in that journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would say that's true too with some of the leaders when you introduce Bruce Tuckman's Stages of Team Development. So the forming, storming, norming, and performing, and you ask what stage they think the team that reports to them are in. Oh, definitely norming on our way to performing. Right. And as a coach, you're looking at it obviously much more objectively let's keep talking. I'm not certain that's where you are. So that's just human nature. Yeah, that's why coaches are helpful. Just help us see things a little more objectively.
Definitely. Now, one more question on the topic of the workshop or, putting this book into practice. Do you use an assessment to inform this book and the information, or do you go right into the model? How are you kind of creating that benchmark?
At this point, that's an excellent question. I have had a couple of people say they would love an assessment. I've been hesitant to create an assessment. First of all, it would need to be validated, and
right.
That's it's important. An assessment's not just something I would whip together. But what I think, I kind of like the idea of people reading it and grappling with it. I kind of think the growth comes in the grappling. Mm-hmm. So I've been hesitant to create an assessment that says this is a stage you're in, because I feel like that takes something away from the growth opportunity. So this is obviously the coach in me talking, saying, how do I create the richest learning experience?
Right.
And I'm just not yet convinced that the assessment would do that. So right now, it's a lot of reflection. It's literally mapping out the years, mapping out the roles, talking through what you've learned, talking about the moral for each stage, and when you think you really got that moral. So it leaves it open to some degree to the individual's interpretation. But I think that's okay. I think it's okay for people to try and grapple with it, because it also makes them keep reviewing the stages and revisiting it.
Fair enough. Terri, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
The best place would be our website, which is www.inspiredtraining.net. That is the best place. And on there, up at the top, you can see all of the Inspired Training Institute social media. And if you go to the book page, you'll see all of the Terri Jacke author social media links. So we're on most of the platforms. You can also see some of the workshops and any of the recent newsletters or podcasts or other things that we have available as well.
Fantastic. We will definitely provide the backlinks to the website as well as to the right social links. We pulled them directly from the main webpage, but we'll get those links squared away, but they will be in our show notes for everybody to pursue. Terri, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Success Insight, and congratulations on the book and just your continuing journey, because this is a developmental journey as well for you.
Absolutely. This author stuff is all new to me for sure.
Very good. Well, once again, thank you for taking the time. And again, I grew up in Detroit, but I will say, go Packs.
Thank you, Howard. I appreciate it. And I will say to you, go Lions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been a joy talking to you.
Our pleasure. Thank you. All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Terri Jacke. She's president of the Inspired Training Institute. She's an executive coach, and we have been chatting about her new book, Is This a Lousy Job or Is It Me? A Real-Life Guide for Achieving Success at Work. And most definitely go out, get yourself a copy of the book. We'll provide links back to the book, for example, on Amazon, as well as to her website, inspiredtraining.net. And, there are many, many reasons why this book is so incredibly important today. There's so many constraints on our time, and we're asked to do things that maybe we're not comfortable or no longer want to. And, being happy is important. And, being grateful. You've got your family, your friends, your loved ones, your health in this COVID-19 era. But you want to be in careers that we love and we're passionate about and can conceivably think about doing this for the rest of our lives, for that matter. So this is just a great book to discover what stage you're in within the BY FABLE model. And, beginning, yuckiness, fear, authenticity, boundaries, love, and exit. See, I got that model correct now. Please do go out and learn more about Terri and her work and her team's work. And folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. Take care of yourselves, your family, practice social distancing, wear a mask, and we will see you on the next episode of the Success Insight podcast. Oh, and before I forget, do visit us on our website, successinsightpodcast.com. We're also on Facebook and LinkedIn, Success Insight Podcast, as well as YouTube and all the podcast platforms, Buzzsprout, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. We're everywhere. So once again, go out, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Success Insight Podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.